Hi everyone, TG Wolff here. Today we welcome author Deborah H. Goldstein to Mysteries to Die For. Deborah is the author of the Kensington Sarah Blair Mystery Series. Sarah was married at 18, divorced at 28, and only came away from the marriage with Ra-Ra, her Siamese cat. For a woman who's more frightened of the kitchen than murder, Sarah never imagined how hard juggling working as a law firm receptionist, helping her twin sister's restaurant dreams, sort of dating, and solving mysteries would be. That's why, for the sometimes sleuth, the series contains only simple recipes, like Jell-O in a can. Start with one taste too many, and nibble your way to 5 bells too many. The link to Deborah's website is in the show notes, or look for her books from your favorite bookseller.
Remember to look for your books at your favorite babe. That's what TG Wolff just said.
No, I didn't.
You said your favorite babe, bookseller. Or did you say?
I don't know.
You said babe.
Well,
Don't worry.
your favorite
Only the
bookseller.
babes have this book. It's a hot seller. Go get it.
Welcome to Mysteries to Die For. I am TG Wolff, and I'm here with Jack, my piano player and producer. This is a podcast where we combine storytelling with original music to put you at the heart of a mystery. All of our stories are structured to challenge you to beat the detective to the solution. These are arrangements, which means instead of word-for-word readings, you get a performance that's meant to be heard. Jack and I perform these live, front to back, no breaks, no fakes, no retakes, not even for barking dogs. This is Season 7, Games People Play. Games are about competition conducted according to rules, with participants working toward a goal. Games are a part of every culture and are one of the oldest forms of social interaction and engagement. Games can be fun, challenging, and exhilarating. They can also be intense, cutthroat, and lethal. This season, our authors have fashioned deadly games and unscrupulous villains to test your detection skills. This is Episode 8. Marbles is the featured game. This is Going for All the Marbles by Deborah H. Goldstein. You know, Jack, I always get confused when we have a game that's plural like marbles. Is it marbles are the featured game or marbles is the featured game?
Marbles will be the featured game as we read it.
As we read it.
Exactly.
Are we sticking with the piano or are you changing modes?
I didn't pick out another one, so I mean I could pick out a random one right now, but I can't see how that would go well.
You really couldn't.
So I think we're gonna stick with piano for today.
All right. Here is this story. We're going to start with coming off desk duty. Juggling Ty's baby carriage out of the hatchback while holding him was always tricky, but today I found it impossible. The fabric I creatively draped around the carriage to make it look like a bobsled was caught on his diaper bag. I wanted to scream, but Ty was already screeching loud enough for both of us. "Do you need a hand, Detective Stevens?" Police Chief Ralph Rollins asked me as he leaned the skis he was carrying against my car. He held out his hands. "Here, give 'em to me." "Thanks, boss." "No problem, Detective." I handed Ty to him. My little angel immediately stopped crying and snuggled against Chief Rollins' down jacket. During the sudden quiet, I quickly separated the fabric from the diaper bag before wrestling the carriage from the car. Once the pram was on the ground, I made sure its wheels were locked before retrieving my son. "I swear, you're the baby whisperer," I said. "No, simply the father of 5, Chief Rollins replied. He picked up his skis. "And for today's Newton Park Olympic costume party, I'm a skier. And you?" "Well, to include Ty, I'm channeling bobsled champion Alana Myers-Taylor and her son Nico. Apparently, though, my makeshift bobsled needs a little work to avoid obstacles. Thanks for your help." Detective Stevens, I'm the one who should be thanking you, Chief Rowland said. I know you're not officially off desk duty until tomorrow, so I appreciate you helping out on the ground today. Considering the rash of shattered windshield attacks we've had during the past 4 months, the mayor was on my back to make sure there'd be no incidents of any kind during Newton's annual Sunday Fun Day. The death of that poor driver last Saturday has everyone clamoring for us to find her killer. When the windshield attacks began, the press dubbed the perpetrator the California projectile bomber. Now, after a woman, my age, going to pick up her child from daycare crashed into the cement wall of a bridge after her windshield was struck, the press's new headline read, California projectile bomber murders woman. Thinking of the victim, I glanced at Ty and shuddered. I bent forward and tucked his blanket more tightly around him. To change the subject, as the chief and I started walking into the park, I pointed to the people playing frisbee in the grassy area we were passing. From the looks of it, the combination of today's beautiful sunshine and the Olympian theme has brought out quite a crowd. That's why I asked you to come off your part-time maternity leave a day early, the chief said. If we thought each attack was coming from an overpass, I'd have had enough officers to cover today's event. I was surprised. My assumption of how the attacks all occurred was apparently erroneous. The windshield assaults weren't all launched from an overpass? No, Chief Rowland said. Except for what I heard in last week's report, heard on the news, I wasn't in the loop on this case during my maternity leave. What am I missing? I asked. The chief stopped and took his wool ski cap off. He ran his fingers through his already matted hair before returning the cap to his head. 9 incidents in 4 months, but without any consistency. There's no question that a few came from an overpass, but some of the cracked windshields occurred on straight stretches of highway, and 2 were on main streets. The attacks haven't had any rhyme or reason except that they aren't occurring when the streets are deserted. It's been a mixed bag between rush hour and normal traffic patterns. I didn't realize there'd been that many or that they'd been so varied, I said. The media has covered the assaults but hasn't focused in on the times, he explained. We didn't release our belief that not all of them were launched from an overpass. What? I said. The attacks were from different directional sources? The chief looked around. The variability is why the mayor and I are so on edge today. If there is an attack, we're not sure where it will come from. Trying to address any possibility is why I assigned officers to all overpasses, streets, and highway exits within 2 miles of the park. And that left you short in the park itself, I said. That's right, Detective. You and I are the only officers available to patrol the park. No problem. I prefer to be outside, even if it's for a few more hours than I would have put in on desk duty. I jiggled the carriage as, with a hasty peek overhead, I walked with Sheriff Rollins under the park's arched entrance. Ty and I will enjoy strolling through the park. Besides, I grew up a few blocks from here. In fact, I still live in this part of town, so I'm very aware of how much the people in the neighborhood are scared. Personally, I've started draping a blanket or a towel over Ty's car seat and taking longer routes to avoid going under any bridges. Not that it actually matters from the different direction the attacks are coming from, but it's probably a wise thing to do, Chief Rollins said. I stopped pushing Ty's carriage. Is there something more I should know before we split up? No, the chief said. We've pretty much covered everything. Hopefully, with so much extra coverage in the vicinity today, nothing will happen. I began pushing Ty's pram again. Is there anything specific that makes you think there's going to be another car attack today? Yes, we profiled the person, the chief said. It seems the perp is probably male. We're also sure the person is a loner with some very specific or unusual interest. He's been consistent in that the windshield strikes occur near the end of a business day or when there is an event that draws a lot of people. That's why Fun Day feels like the perfect target. I nodded, waiting for the chief to explain further. Growing up in this neighborhood, you know that nothing attracts a larger crowd than the annual costume fun day in the park. With this year's theme being the Olympics, it seems to me Bomber might want to demonstrate his championship prowess. Makes sense. Maneuvering the carriage to avoid a small rock on the path, I couldn't help but look up again, even though there was nothing but blue California sky above us. As I understand it, though, until last week, while frightening, none of the incidents resulted in serious injury, except to the windshields. That's right, the chief agreed. All the other times, when the drivers heard a loud boom and saw their windshields crack, most were able to maintain control of their cars. The ones that hit something were restrained by their seatbelts. Our victim wasn't wearing hers. The click it or ticket earworm raced through my mind. I pushed it away as I asked, "What's being used to crack the windshields?" Chief Rollins frowned. "That's one of the other things that's been stumping us. We haven't found any residual evidence. Usually in these cases, rocks, boulders, BBs, or bullets are used. There was even one instance where someone threw an anvil off a bridge, completely taking out the windshield and the driver." "How horrible," I said. "That person wanted to kill his boss, and succeeded. This time," the sheriff noted, "it's different. We're getting periphery damage to the windshield, but there doesn't seem to be any commonality between the victims. We thought it was someone shooting a BB gun or something of a low caliber, but we haven't found any shell casings or spent BBs. It's like whatever the bomber is firing is a magic object that hits the windshield and disappears before the glass even finishes cracking." We reached the center of the park. The chief pointed to the right where the swings, sandbox, slides, and other traditional playground equipment were. "I'll go in that direction. Why don't you wander around the areas where the games are being played and see if anything or anyone triggers something for you. If you see anything suspicious, call me on my cell." "Will do," I said. Let the games begin. Leaving the chief, I pushed a now sleeping Tide toward the picnic tables. Normally, only a few tables would be in use. Today, there wasn't an empty one to be had. People were eating at some, probably from the different offerings of the food trucks ringing the parking lot next to this part of the park. Most of the tables, though, were covered with chess, checkers, and backgammon boards. Players, intent on their respective games, sat in front of the various boards. Like the players, most onlookers circling the tables were in costume. Those that pertained to the game we're playing were easy to recognize. The Olympic figure skaters, skiers, curlers, skateboarders, and snowboarders could definitely be identified by their broom and board accessories. But I wasn't too sure what the other games or challenges some of the costumes might represent. I chuckled at the sight of one overweight gentleman wearing a bodysuit, relieved that it was a little too cold for him to be running around in a Speedo. Pushing into the crowd, my attention was caught by a group watching a young boy playing chess with a much older man. From the number of pieces lined up on the board in front of him, the child was either a whiz kid or the man was letting him win. "Wow, that kid's good," I said to no one in particular. A woman next to me responded, "Yes, but it's the best 3 out of 5 games to move to the championship round. This is only the first game. My husband isn't dead yet." I nodded and continued to watch the kid and the woman's husband. In between plays, the man's arms hung loosely at his side, but the tightness of his jaw and the way he kept clenching and unclenching his fist convinced me that he wasn't enjoying the drubbing he was taking. I made a mental note to keep an eye on him as the game progressed. Backing the carriage away from the onlookers, I felt my cell phone vibrate in my pocket. I pulled it out. Chief Rollins' name scrawled across the top of my screen. I punched the green acceptance button. "Hello? Rollins here. Anything to report?" "I'm glad you called, Chief. I just finished with the chess and checkers competition area. They're still early in the games, but there is one player I think you might want to check back on. He has a lot of pent-up anger." I filled him in on where the man sat, what he looked like, and the description of the man's wife. After the chief indicated he'd follow up, we ended our call. Glad that was off of my to-do list, I made sure the shade of the carriage was positioned to continue to keep the sun off of Ty's face. Then I headed toward the larger part of the park where there was a baseball diamond, basketball court, and a tennis enclosure. All of them were in use. A loud crack made me stretch my body across the top of the stroller to protect Ty. The cheer and subsequent groan were enough for me to stand upright without the necessity of hearing the thud of the ball landing in the outfielder's mitt. Pushing Ty's buggy, I scanned the players and the spectators. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, so I moved on to the paved square beyond where I had just been. When I was a child, this part of the park was where I played hopscotch, jump rope, and drew pictures with sidewalk chalk that lasted until the next rain. As the park expanded and more pre-made courts and activities were added, the square was rarely used. But today, the area was hopping. The marbles competition. A sign stuck on a tree read, "Marbles competition." Somebody had drawn 4 3-foot circles with sidewalk chalk on the pavement. Enough space was left between the circles for the players to kneel on the ground. Although no section was roped off, non-participants only congregated at the ends of the squares as they watched the competitors without getting in their way. What interested me was that instead of just 2 people competing against each other, as I would have thought the game was played, each circle had several people playing against each other. Like a chess or checkers competition, all ages and sexes were competing. Glancing at my watch, I figured that if my luck held, Ty might sleep for another 30 minutes. I pushed his carriage to where I could talk to some of the onlookers. Loudly, I said, "I've never seen marbles played. Could someone tell me how the game goes?" A man dressed as a baseball player answered, "There's a lot of different marbles games, but they're playing the basic game. Each player has a shooter, which is the larger and heavier marble you see. They're using the shooters to knock their opponent's marbles out of the ring. This game can be played with taking turns or shooting until you fail to hit a marble out. With so many players, they're taking turns today." I pointed at the nearest circle. "That man didn't knock any out, but he's picking up a lot of marbles from outside the ring. He's picking up the ones he knocked out earlier. This being a tournament, they've opted to play for keeps," the baseball player explained. I grimaced. I'd be scared to play that way. He grinned. "Me too. Most of the players in front of you are so crackerjack that they rarely lose marbles, and they make sure if they do, that they don't play for keeps. Today, though, as part of the competition, every player had to put up 10 marbles that they might lose. The ones he picked up, he won, fair and square." He didn't pick up his big one, though," I pointed out. "It's still in the circle. Is he going to lose his shooter?" The baseball player shrugged. "Maybe, if someone knocks it out. The rule is that if your shooter is in the ring and you don't knock any marbles out, you leave it in the ring and shoot from where it is on your next turn." I nodded, following. "What if it does get knocked out by one of the other players?" "Then he loses the entire game," he said. "The odds are he'll simply be shooting from a place in the ring. Even then, he's going to have to be careful." "Why is that?" I asked. "Well, he needs to make sure he doesn't touch the chalk circle with his knees when he reaches in." He pointed to the odd body position another player currently had assumed. "Touching the circle invokes a loss of turn penalty." I nodded. "I guess it's like pool where your touch is important for shooting purposes." "It's more than a touch. Here, look." He held up his hand, demonstrating as he spoke. "To shoot a marble, you have to fold your thumb, pinky, and ring finger into your palm. Then you roll the pointer finger around the marble, keeping it against your thumb knuckle. When you shoot, you flick your thumb out and the marble flies. It takes a lot of skill and precision to get it to land where you want it." Although I tried to copy what he was doing, my hand would not cooperate. It was a lot harder than the players made it look. The baseball player laughed at my efforts. "It takes a lot of practice to land marbles exactly where you want them. If you think shooting with your hand is difficult, you should try some other ways you can shoot." "Like what?" I asked. Well, if you want to pack more of a punch, you can use machine shooters, catapults, slingshots, and there's even a way to use a toilet paper roll. I can't tell you how many years I've put in learning how to control marbles with various techniques, and I'm just an average mibster. Mibster? I echoed. A marbles player, he said. Acknowledging my ignorance, I observed that I didn't know how the act of shooting was so complex and concise. It's a lot wider sport than most people realize, baseball player said. Although nobody knows how the game of marbles really started, the game has a whole group of devoted mibsters or followers. There's even been an annual national marbles tournament for 7 to 14-year-olds in Wildwood, New Jersey since 1922. 4 college scholarships, 2 for champions and 2 for sportsmanship, are given out annually. For the past 5 years, our local group has sent someone to the national tournament. I shook my head. Again, something I never knew. Well, we don't get much publicity. He sighed. Baseball player pointed toward the second ring. See the kid in the Spider-Man pajamas? He's mine. Spider-Man, I chuckled. Not exactly Olympic, is he? He laughed. Yeah, but that's the costume he wanted to wear because Spider-Man is his hero. He thinks Spider-Man will give him the ability to avoid putting his knee on the line. I'm not too sure of the logic of that, but if he keeps going the way he is, in a year or two, he might be our representative to the National Marbles Tournament. That would be wonderful, I said, meaning it. Baseball player smiled. Only if he wants it. If he wakes up tomorrow and says he's had enough marbles, that's okay with his mom and me. We're just happy he's involved with the marbles group. It already has kept him from getting into trouble with some of the bad influences in our neighborhood. But he's so young, I said. You can't be too early finding something good to get your kid involved with. Baseball player nodded his head in Ty's direction. You're lucky you found marbles for your son so early, I said. We are, he said. It's a shame that someone didn't start our program years ago, because we would have had some players, who are adults now, who probably would have given anyone entered in the national tournament a run for their money. With a sweep of his hand, he indicated a woman standing at the ring across from us. Did you know
Cool lady.
Yeah, did you know that marbles was such an involved game?
I didn't know that I was going to learn how to play marbles today.
I know, it's a really detailed explanation of it, but I see where it kind of rules-wise crosses over with pool or some of the other.
Yeah, it seems like a precursor. If not, I mean, maybe it's not a precursor. Who knows? Maybe I just angered like 40 listeners by saying that. I apologize. I'm just a simple-minded piano man. Don't judge me. Don't hate me.
But you can see that, like if the marbles just got bigger and somebody's like, you know what? I'm tired of kneeling down on the ground. Let's put these on a table.
Pretty much. I got marbles for Christmas. I mean, it's not Christmas when you guys are listening to this, but it is January 2nd today, the day that we are recording this.
Yes, Jack said he wanted, quote, things that make cool sounds for Christmas.
I did.
So in a box, which I call the sound box, were some very nice marbles.
They were nice. They're handcrafted. They're
Yes,
pretty.
they
There's a
are.
ton of them. I like them a lot.
There are other sets to that. I just picked out one that I liked best.
I will be getting them. Don't worry. I have my new investment opportunity, I suppose is the word. I have too many things I can sink money into right now. Like the big thing I want to do is I want to get guitar pedals to hook up to my to like some microphones and then to play like percussive music through it, so like a cajon, and then just add a bunch of effects to it. And then people are like, "Well, Jack, you have Ableton, you can do it through there." Yeah, but I don't want to. Okay, I want to spend more money on something I don't have already. All right, don't judge me.
I think we need to go into the used market of guitar pedals.
Well, yeah, but those will be even more fun. I'm excited to spend all of my money
Stop
that
it.
I don't have because I don't have a job.
Stop it.
I'm kidding. I have a job.
You need to invest in your savings account.
Hey, I have plenty invested.
You do. You're a good saver.
See, don't rat me out. Grandma might be listening. Don't rat me out. Alrighty.
All right, you ready for She Could Have Been a Contender?
Could have been a contender. A pretender. Okay, I'm going to stop.
Not a pretender. That woman is Sheila. She is and would have been one of the best, the baseball player said. Does she compete now, I asked. Baseball player shook his head. Only for local honors and some pickup games or in events like this one that she puts on to help fund our youth program. Sheila can still outshoot everyone in the marble-related activity. Although she never had a chance to earn the college tuition through a marbles competition, she got an associate's degree in automotive mechanics from the junior college. By earning the automotive certificate, taking some general ed courses, and completing a medium and heavy truck certificate, Sheila's as well versed in that field as she is in marbles. I didn't know her, but I was already impressed with Sheila. Did she get some other kind of scholarship to fund her studies? Nope, he said. I guess they thought a woman would wash out of the program, so why give her a scholarship? She made it by working odd jobs and hustling marble players who never thought a woman could be good. He laughed. Even now and then, she still hustles some sucker. But she looks so nice, I said. Oh, Sheila is, but she doesn't suffer fools lightly. She could easily have become a professional hustler. I still get a kick out of watching her take some blowhard down. No one ever expects a little lady like her to wallop them. Although baseball player talked as if he was proud of Sheila, something about the tightness of his jawline made me wonder. I expect not, he said. You sound like you've learned from experience. Baseball player smiled. Only once, and that was enough. I stared at Sheila, wondering how a big guy like baseball player was so obviously intimidated by such a diminutive woman. She doesn't hustle like she used to because she's so focused on working with the kids, he explained. She started our local group and crossed the T's and dotted the I's to get us involved with the national tournament. Sheila also is a dynamo at organizing things like today's event to support our local activities and pay the way for our student to make the trip. The only time you really need to watch out is if you cross her or get in the way of one of her female protégés. She sounds a little scary, I said. He shook his head. Not really. A voice yelling, "Dad!" interrupted our discussion. When the voice yelled again and baseball player ran toward the circle where his son was playing, I realized the child calling for help was young Spider-Man. He was pointing at a grown-up who was also kneeling around the circle. "He took my shooter," Spider-Man accused. Baseball player grabbed the man by the collar of his camouflage jacket and yanked him to his feet. "Patrick, are you up to your old games again? Against a child?" "Whoa, calm down, Arnie. It was an accident. Your kid's shooter was next to the one I knocked out." Patrick, whose long greasy hair made me think he needed a shower, had said. "Come off it, Patrick. How do you just happen to pick up a blue shooter that's worth something inside the ring instead of the glass one that you knocked out?" I thought Arnie, who I still thought of as baseball player, was about to punch Patrick in the face when Sheila held her hands up in the air, squeezed her way between the two men. "Enough," she said, as maintaining their fighter stances, they separated. She frowned at the man who baseball player had just released. "Patrick? It was an accident, Sheila. Look at the one sitting outside the ring and this one." He held up the shooter he picked up between his thumb and forefinger so she could see it. They were almost identical blue shooters. "Any mibster would know they aren't of the same value," baseball player said. Ignoring the comment, Patrick directed his plea toward Sheila. "Honestly, Sheila, I wasn't looking that closely when I gathered up the marbles I knocked out." As Sheila peered in the direction of the ring, baseball player struck out his hand toward Patrick, palm up. Patrick dropped the blue shooter in it. Pushing past Sheila toward his son, baseball player gave Patrick a hard shove. As Patrick tried to regain his balance, his foot slipped over the ring. "Looks to me like you're out," baseball player said to Patrick. He handed his son the recovered shooter. "Arnie's right," Sheila said. "But he pushed me," Patrick protested. "Shouldn't he be disqualified too?" "If he were playing," Sheila said. "Arnie's son didn't do anything wrong, so he's still in. He'll shoot from the point you picked up his marble. You're out." The referee gets the final word. Oh, Patrick began to argue with Sheila again, but a sturdy guy with the soldier-like buzz cut rested his arm on Patrick's shoulder. "Hey, it's only a game. It's not like you're playing for money today. Let's take a ride in my new Camaro and get a drink. I'm buying." Patrick started to say something, but when Sheila nodded at the two, he frowned and let himself be led away. His son situated, and the game resumed. Baseball player returned to my side. As he watched his son knock out another player's shooter and continued his apparent winning streak, baseball player's reddened face lightened. "What was all that about?" I asked. "Patrick being Patrick," he said with distaste, "trying to pull a fast one. He hasn't been around in the last few weeks since he lost to Sheila during the last slingshot contest." "Are slingshot competitions different from hand marble contests?" I asked. "Quite a bit," baseball player said. "They usually have 3 or 4 stages where the marbles are shot from a catapulting slingshot. Because the one Patrick got into trouble in wasn't a national or international competition, it was only 3 stages." "Stages?" I pressed. "Non-marble players like you would probably think of them as rounds," baseball player said, "but the proper term is stages, because there are rounds within the stages." Apparently, taking my nod for understanding, baseball player continued his explanation. In this particular tournament, competitors were allowed to shoot with a rubber or latex band slingshot that couldn't be over 30 centimeters in length or over 25 centimeters in width. Confused, I asked, "And who enforces these rules?" "Referees," he said, "and they're strict. During the first stage, every competitor shot 4 rounds of knockdown of 5 possible disc targets. Each target had a different value. The top 50% from the first stage advanced to the second stage, which was a target sheet competition," he said. "How do target sheets differ from disc shooting?" I asked. "Well, the target sheets are paper and look much like an archery target," he explained. "Each circle has corresponding points that can be earned if you hit it." "With a slingshot," I said. "Both sound like they take a lot of skill to advance." "They do," he said. "The third stage, where Sheila beat Patrick, was the most complex. At this point, only the top 20 shooters were left from the earlier stages. To win, one had to get through 7 rounds of 15-minute sheets. The first round eliminated 10 shooters. Rounds 2 through 4 took out 2 more competitors per round. Only 1 person was knocked out in rounds 5 and 6. The final 2 competed for winner and runner-up in round 7. I realized something had kept Patrick from winning, but I wasn't sure what it was. So what happened with Patrick? How far did he make it?" "Well, he was disqualified in round 5 because he didn't stop shooting when the referee called time," the baseball player said. "Well, obviously, if he got that far, Patrick had to be familiar with the time limits," I said. "Oh, he was. He argued that he should have been given extra time because his band had broken and he had to change out a slingshot with the band that Mike, who'd been knocked out earlier, gave him," baseball player said. "The referee didn't buy it, so he disqualified Patrick and let Sheila, whose score was a point lower, move on. Oh, Patrick was so mad he stomped out of the competition. We haven't seen him since. Personally, I hoped he'd disappear forever." "Why?" I asked. "Is he bad news?" He snorted derisively. "Oh, you got that right. He's always trying to pull a fast one. Occasionally, it's trying to sneak extra time into a round. Most of the time, it's been a matter of if he sees a valuable marble, he tries to gain it in a legit way by, palming it when people aren't watching. By now, we're all on to him." "You sound like you know him pretty well," I said. "I mean, what's the story on him? I don't remember seeing him around the park." "Well, Patrick is one of the ones who could have been something in the game," baseball player sighed. "He's good at thumb and slingshot games. I don't know why Sheila keeps letting him come around. He's a mess. When he does show up, neither his hygiene nor his behavior offers a good role model for the kids." I wondered what Sheila thought about baseball player or considering the fight he just instigated. Instead of following that train of thought, I asked him more about Patrick. "Patrick used to be an independent over-the-road driver, but he hurt his back," baseball player said. "He filed for a disability pension, but it was denied on the grounds that he could do lighter work. Since then, he's been trying to get someone to take his case, but he hasn't had any luck. Until 2 months ago, when he got knocked out of the slingshot competition, he showed up here when he wasn't doing pickup light moving jobs with his truck. So Patrick's working, I asked. Disability and working didn't go hand in hand in my mind. Part-time he qualified, and only if the jobs don't call for heavy lifting or long periods of driving. Consequently, he's got a lot of free time on his hands. That's too bad, I said. What about the guy who led him away? The other guy. Mike led Patrick away, baseball player said. Mike was one of Sheila's first marble players. He likes to credit her and his subsequent stint in the military with him not ending up in jail or dead like many of the other members of the gang he was in. Now he's back in the neighborhood. Sheila's hoping he'll stay engaged with her program and avoid his old pals. Do you think that's possible? I asked. I've always heard that it can be rough to stay straight when you come back to a neighborhood where you ran with the wrong crowd. Especially if the jobs are few and far between, baseball player said. It takes money to eat. Sheila has slipped him a few dollars for doing odd jobs for her. She believes that when Mike comes around the marbles game, he's not getting into trouble. I'm not so sure. Why's that? I asked. Let's just say his discharge wasn't honorary. He shook his head sadly. The military didn't take the hot head out of the man. He was caught borrowing a Jeep from the motor pool. The cop in me was paying close attention. I get the feeling you don't think he's going to keep his nose clean. Baseball player shrugged. I have a different opinion than Sheila. What's that? I asked. Once a gang member, always a gang member. Lately, for someone without a job, he sure seems to have a lot of extra cash and a pretty nice set of wheels. Interrupting the flow of our conversation, baseball player turned towards someone who yelled, "Hey Arnie," at him. He struck his hand in his pocket and drew out a set of car keys, which he threw at the man. From the looks of it, we're going to be here for at least 2 or 3 more hours. I expect my Tahoe back by then. When his gaze shifted back to his son's game, I opted to ask him another question, hoping to keep the flood of his knowledge flowing. You sound like you've had a long involvement with marbles. He grinned with pride. Before I had a kid, I not only was an avid mibster, playing in the various finger and ammo slingshot games that were available anywhere in the state, but I also built up a quite nice collection of marbles. Surprised, I turned to the baseball player. People collect marbles? Sure, baseball player said. Vintage marbles, like the one Patrick's tried to steal from my son, will sell for $50 to $100. The cost of the most expensive marbles, none of which I own, go into the thousands. Thousands, I repeated, stunned at the idea. When I was a kid, I remember seeing glass and solid-looking marbles. Are those what you're talking about? Sort of, he said. The game has been played with everything from rounded sea pebbles to fruit pits, but in the 20th century, what they're made of has widened to include agate, baked clay, alabaster, onyx, wood, plastic, and steel. There's all different types and sizes, too. Just like my kid thinks his Spider-Man pajamas bring him luck, he feels the same way about the blue shooter I let him have from my collection. So far, he hasn't lost it. For the next few minutes, baseball player gave me a brief intro course into the value of collectible marbles. I was amazed. As much as I like to keep in talking, though, I realized Ty was stirring. Without Chief Rollins to be my baby whisperer, I thought it was best to end the marbles lessons. Oh dear, I said, I think my baby's waking up. I better move on before he starts screaming and breaks the player's concentration. Good luck to your son, I said. Thanks, he yelled back. Yes, marbles is a very involved game.
Apparently. I know everything about marbles. I can be your marble connoisseur from now on.
It's kind of interesting to think about shooting them from a slingshot at targets.
Yeah, I mean, that's well. I wonder what spherical object could be used to break these windshields, and they just seem to disappear, like they shatter and just blend in with the rest of the glass. I don't know. Personally, I'm suspecting wooden boxes. I think, you know, according to Minecraft theory, never
Yes.
mind, I don't have a theory. I was going to say if you threw it, it would float
In
in
Minecraft?
Minecraft. Well, no. I don't know where I was going with that one.
As we learned in previous episodes, I am not allowed to
Previous?
comment. Previous
I
episodes,
also
I am not
love-
allowed to comment on video games because I am a middle-aged mom who can't get anything right on video games.
My favorite thing is seeing if you'll pronounce marble correctly.
Marble. Have I?
Marble? I've heard
Marble.
you drop the R. I've heard marl, I
I've
think,
had
once.
trouble with ours lately.
Marble, I'll admit, ours can get there if you're like in the middle of like a busy sentence and you just want to like throw it out like you're from Boston. Marble.
I don't know. I do
marble?
not have a speech impediment, but there are just some days where actually saying an R is hard for me.
Anyway, I like listening to you say marble. It's a gamble, you know.
Marble.
Some people shoot dice. I listen to see if my mom can pronounce the word marble. We all get our thrills from someplace.
Cheap
you know?
thrills.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys. Some people shoot marbles, you know.
Other people shoot marbles.
And other people throw marbles in front of cars that are moving and kill a guy, apparently. Or kill a
Woman.
girl.
Woman. Mama.
Woman. Mama. That's sad.
Yeah.
But I will say, no idea who the killer is. All I know is that there's Patrick, there's baseball, there's his child. My money's on the child. I bet, because look, if I were a kid, I would also be throwing marbles at moving buildings. Buildings? Okay, I can't make fun of your marble comments anymore.
A moving building.
Well, you know what? There are moving buildings, okay? Some people move their trailer homes around. Other people, you can get your houses shipped.
You are so stretching it.
If you go,
you should just put
hold
your
on.
fingers back on the
Hold
keys.
on. If you go to Shipshewana, Indiana, there's this one cool place that has a bunch of these like hunter sheds. Oh, I don't know what they are. You can live in them. They've got like 2 beds and a bathroom, and it's great. And you can buy it from them, and they'll ship you a house. And you can already kind of ship houses.
Isn't that an RV?
No, an RV has wheels. This is a stationary house that they put on a giant trailer and they send to you, and it's amazing. And so yeah, if this kid were to throw a marble at a moving house, a moving building, I think the building would get some damage. You know?
I think it's time for you to put your hands back
Probably.
on the keyboard.
Have we ever made marble out of marble?
I don't know.
I'm going to look up a marble.
Yeah.
I want a marble. That's my new investment goal. Spend money on a marble. I will let you guys know when I have bought a marble. Which, seeing as this episode drops in like, what, May? I might have a marble before this episode even drops. So then like the next episode, I'll like go on and never mind. The point is marble. All right, let's start.
Reflections and instinct. Growing up in this neighborhood, or any for that matter, I knew how easily one could be tempted or make one bad decision that could ruin everything. Having witnessed the needless death of a friend was one of the things that steered me to join the force. Looking around as I pushed Ty toward the car, I thought about the uniforms of the real police officers and how they were far more heroic than any worn by today's mock contenders. Most of the officers I knew were worthy of far more than gold, silver, and bronze medals. My phone vibrated again. This time it was a text. Your instinct's right. Chess guy lost 3-zip and went off on a kid. All else seems calm. Call it a day. Chief Rollins' text couldn't have come at a better time. Ty was awake and hungry. I took off for home. What with feeding, bathing, and putting Ty to bed before finally throwing something on the table for my husband and myself, it was 10 o'clock before I turned on the television to check out the news. The first person I saw was Chief Rollins. He was being questioned about how another hit by the projectile bomber could have taken place today. Seeing how unhappy the chief looked, a thought went through my head. I pulled out my computer and Googled slingshots and marbles. As late as it was, I called him. Tonight's news and an idea. Rollins here. Detective Stevens? Yes, sir. I just saw the news and felt, despite the time, that I should call you. Yeah, I'm on the hot seat after having everyone out there and still missing the crime when it went down, he said. You could have waited until tomorrow, though, to commiserate. No, I couldn't, I said. I think I figured out what's going on. I even have some suspects for you. First, tell me, did you find what broke the windshield? Nope, the chief said. Once again, there was nothing in the area where we think the shot must have come from, and no evidence of a bullet or a BB. How about a marble? I asked. A what? He said, as though he didn't hear me right. You need to check the car in the area for a marble. Probably a bigger one that would be a shooter, I said excitedly. We used to call those Aggies, he said, but what does that have to do with the price of beans? They had a giant marble competition at the park today, I said. Detective, I'm tired, so maybe I'm missing something here. Chief, it was explained to me that you can shoot a marble with your thumb for regular marble games, but there's also slingshot ammo marble events, where one uses a slingshot to enhance the force behind the whizzing marble. When the marble hits, it apparently packs quite a punch. I'm betting that a marble shot from a slingshot can do a lot of damage to a windshield. That could be a possibility, Chief Rollins said. The chief didn't seem convinced, so I continued with my theory. Once the marble hits the windshield, it simply rolls away. Our team, not thinking of something rolling, might not have canvassed a wide enough area to find a marble. Interesting concept, the chief said, but a bit far-fetched. Maybe I hedged, but let me take you a step further. You said that not all the assaults came from an overpass. Rather than shooting from a bridge or an overpass and then using gravity to intensify the power with which the marble hit, a slingshot allows one to be close or far away from the target. Bomber could get away with being in a vehicle in the next lane or somehow near his victim's car before shooting the marble from his own car or truck window. Chief Rollins didn't say anything for a moment. Just when I was about to ask if he was still there, he spoke. It could make sense for today's hit. Right. Now, if the person was driving a raised vehicle, like, say, an 18-wheeler, a small truck, or a high van, or some type of car on monster wheels, it could explain the variability of where the hit came from, I shot back. Any of those would put the person above the victim's windshield when the marble was shot from a slingshot. Interesting, the chief noted. Thanks for calling, Stevens. Once we hung up, I went to check on Ty and then went to bed. Morning for my first full day back on street duty would come faster than I wanted. All right, Jack, we're at the deliberation.
It's Bob the Builder.
So I wanted to take this break to say that Mysteries to Die For remains ad-free. And in exchange for not making you hit the fast-forward button, support our authors by checking out their backlist and pick up a title. This week is Deborah H. Goldstein. Check out the Sarah Blair Mystery Series and the rest of Deborah's backlist on her website. I have the list in the show notes. And check it out from your favorite bookseller. So, Jack. Detective Stevens is lining up her shot. Let's help her and Chief Rollins find the loose marble.
She's lining up. That's so funny. Okay.
I liked it. Here are the people Stevens is considering.
Okay. It's Patrick.
The baseball player / Arnie, a former mibster and marble collector who is following his son.
Yes.
Sheila,
No.
the mibster mechanic who could have been a professional marbles hustler.
Oh, Sheila makes so much more sense.
Patrick, the down-on-his-luck truck driver who likes to stir up trouble.
Whoa, did you just say he was a truck driver?
He was.
I think our killer has to be a truck driver, doesn't he?
Mike, the former gang member who was one of Sheila's early marble club members.
Oh my goulash.
So I'm sorry, but the Spider-Man boy pajamas is not one of our suspects.
It's not Spooder Boy?
So you have baseball player, Sheila, Patrick, and Mike.
You know, baseball player has a name, and I believe his full name is Archibald.
I think it's just Arnie.
Oh, Arnie? I thought it was Archie.
Arnie.
My bad.
Okay, so here's the facts as Chief Collins and Detective Stevens know them.
Okie dokie.
For the past 4 months, someone has been using something to damage windshields.
Marbles.
A large crack is reported, but no projectile has been found.
From the marbles.
Steven speculates the projectile is a marble and that it rolls away
It
after
is a marble.
hitting the windshield. While the shots are taken all around town, they consistently come from an angle above the victim's windshield.
From a truck.
The police profile of a suspect was likely male, a loner, and having a specific or unusual interest.
Interesting. I bet it's from marbles.
Patrick, Mike, Arnie the baseball player, and Sheila are known for participating in slingshot marbles competition.
How did they deduce that the guy might have a cool hobby? They were like, this killer looks like he might be into collecting baseball cards. It's a unique hobby.
I'm not with the FBI. I don't know how they deduce those things.
We'll ask our FBI friends.
Yes. Patrick is a truck driver taking jobs with no limited lifting. I think I wrote that wrong. Patrick is a truck driver taking jobs with limited lifting due to his back injury. He is angry at his disability being denied and has been caught cheating at marbles twice.
Oh my gosh.
Mike was in a gang in his youth before he found Sheila and marbles. He went into the military but was dishonorably discharged for stealing a Jeep. He currently drives a Camaro.
A Camaro?
A Camaro. Sports car.
If it was two people, it's Mike and Patrick. If it's one person, it's just old Patty Rick.
Baseball player, a.k.a. Arnie, used to be a top player. He is now supporting his son in his marble dreams for as long as he has them.
And murdering people on the side? I don't think so.
He gave his son his shooter, which was valuable. He drives a Tahoe.
I don't get why the kid isn't a suspect. He could have done it. He has a shooter. Granted, he would need more than one.
And he wouldn't be able to use it then.
Does he have a steady income to invest towards his shooters?
He does not.
Maybe he's a
borrowing
babysitting
from his
kid.
dad. Sheila is the matriarch of the local marble community. She organizes the events and gives the kids a place to go.
And
she
then
has
kills
worked
their
hard
parents.
for every success she has.
Why would she kill people?
Okay, my game-loving piano player, who do you think is the California projectile bomber?
I think it's the chess player. The kid who got yelled at by the other
The
chess
kid,
player.
not the old man.
Yeah. Okay.
They weren't on the suspect list.
Think through it with me. It's not Sheila. That makes no sense. Arnie. Why is the... Okay, there's no motive for any person, I suppose. If you're like, why did Patrick do it? He's just angry. Now, he has a truck, apparently, so he has that, height ability, in which I guess... whatever. I was about to say, I don't know how you determine what angle the projectile came at on a car windshield, but you could probably tell. That seems like a thing you can tell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So...
Especially if the windshield didn't shatter. If it remained intact and like spidered or cracked,
yeah,
you could tell what the angle came from.
Yeah, my thing also is that if it came from a truck, it would also have, it wouldn't be coming straight from above, so the crack would have seemed more at an angle from the side.
Yep.
Which it didn't mention, did it?
Well, it said that it's come from all different angles. So it's not, some have been from an overpass, but some have happened just on streets where there weren't overpasses.
But they're all still from some sort of above.
Yes, they're all
within that top 180 degrees.
Yep.
Well, Mike, why would Mike do it? I don't know. Is he targeting people? Old gang members? Maybe. Is he doing it for fun? Possibly. But he'd be having to take someone else's truck because he drives a Camaro. Unless he just has a semi-truck on the side, which doesn't seem like a thing old Mikey boy is going to do. He stole a Jeep, but,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's old Patty Rick.
Okay. Well,
all right.
I hope our listening detectives have put in your vote for who is the California projectile bomber. Before we get to the big reveal, our print and ebook companions for seasons 4, 5, and 6, as well as the first part of season 7 here, are available. Sales from these books do support our podcast, so buy one for yourself and a mystery lover you love. The dimes and quarter from the book sales do support the podcast and help keep Jack in whatever he's interested in now, which currently is marbles. So now, let's hear about Back on Full-Time Duty and the conclusion. Morning came way too fast. By the time I had Ty fed and dressed, his backpack ready, and dropped him off at daycare, I vowed to start a little earlier tomorrow to avoid being the sweating mess I was sliding into the morning's report. At least, I assured myself as I slowed my breathing, I made it before Chief Rollins updated everyone on last night's attack. "We got a break last night," Chief Rollins said, "thanks to Detective Stevens, who we welcome back to full-time duty officially this morning. We got our man, and the physical evidence to put him away." He held up a marble. "This isn't the official weapon, but one like it." I didn't have to glance around the room to know the other officers were looking at me as the chief continued. As she deduced, it was a simple marble that broke the case. When we went back last night and looked for a marble that might be linked to the shooter, we found a blue glass one. We also located a similar shooter marble at the scene of last week's murder. Checking out the 4 suspects Detective Stevens had turned us on to, we knocked out all but one. Mike, who, while he has temper issues, doesn't drive a truck. Another one, Sheila, didn't fit our profile, the shooter probably being male. And that left us with 2 people who drive high-sitting vehicles, Patrick and Arnie. Although both men and both own blue shooters, only Patrick was somewhat isolated. Arnie was a family man who supported his son at the marbles tournament. In fact, that suspect gave his child his valuable blue shooter months ago. With the help of the head of the marbles club, Sheila, who again Detective Stevens turned us on to, we zeroed in on the suspect, Patrick, who was picked up about 2 a.m. He confessed to committing last night's drive-by from his truck, as well as being responsible for the other 9 incidents. Besides the one location where we've already found a similar marble, we're checking the other sites to see if any more marbles can be located. Hearing the perp was caught, I was pleased that I'd called Chief Rollins. Secretly, I was equally glad to have been on my last night of maternity leave day shift desk duty related. Oh my goodness, I butchered that sentence. Secretly, I was equally glad to have been on my last night of maternity leave day shift desk related duty. My colleagues must have worked into the wee hours of the morning if this case had already come together to the extent that Chief Rollins was indicating. I wondered how they were able to develop evidence so quickly. Chief Collins answered my unspoken question. With the 2 marbles we found, we woke up Judge Tigray to get a search warrant, which we executed early this morning. We confiscated similar blue shooters from Patrick's truck and home. In scouring his home, we also found a slingshot and a replacement band. One of our officers spent last night reviewing tapes from where various shootings occurred. He was able to freeze images of Patrick's truck in the vicinity of at least 3 of the shootings. This developed evidence was even better than I had anticipated. The DA, Chief Collins said, believes he has a solid case. He's preparing to charge Sullivan with at least 10 counts of assault with a deadly weapon and level some of a murder charge. There will be additional charges if we find more marbles. At least for now, the DA believes that we have enough evidence to get a conviction on most of the counts. That will put Sullivan away for 25 years to life, because each charge counts individually under California's 3 strikes law. Guess you can say in baseball terms, which I'm far more familiar with than the language of marbles, Patrick whiffed the ball. So it's 3 strikes, and he's out. The end.
Is his name Captain Collins or Captain Rollins?
Rollins. I said Collins. I corrected it as soon as... No, it's Collins.
It is Collins?
It is
I've been looking over, and
Wait,
it's different every...
There's a typo.
Yeah.
It says Chief Collins in one place and then Chief Rollins.
Earlier it also said...
Oops.
I've heard you say both the entire
Oops.
time, and I've had no idea.
That's a 4-leaf clover for our listeners.
It is. How many times was Collins said, and how many times was Rollins said?
Well, whichever one was said first is what it's going to be in the print book. Rollins. Ralph Rollins.
Ralph Rollins. That is hard to say. Ralph Rollins. Say
And
that
I have trouble with
20,000
R's
times
as it
fast.
is. So everybody who's listening to this, enjoy this special treat, because in the print edition, which would have come out in March, as Jack said, we're recording this in January, it will be Ralph Rollins, and there will be no such thing as Chief Collins.
I have another question.
What?
if you got hit, well, okay, I take it back. If I have a question for Mythbusters, really. I need them to go shoot a marble from one truck onto another. Okay, there's many physics questions I actually have here. So, so let me think this through. I suppose
We don't know the answer to it because we would have to shoot marbles at windshields to
exactly.
see what happens.
Would the marble not explode?
I don't know.
I feel like a marble would explode, one or two of them at least. The other thing is, I was thinking at first that he was shooting them to people driving in the same direction as him, and then I was like, well, no, because then the marble would be going the same speed. It might crack it,
Yeah.
but it surely wouldn't kill someone. And then I went, oh, well, if they're going opposite directions, you have someone going 40 one way and 40 another, that's...
And even if the marble didn't shatter the windshield, if it just nicked it, or even if it didn't do any damage to it, it's going to be enough to startle you as a driver. You could easily see somebody swerving, going into whether it's the shoulder or the adjacent lane. Like, you could see it wreaking havoc, even if it didn't actually break a windshield.
And at the same time, how did they ever figure out that this was being done by a person and not just like a rock that got kicked up by a truck?
Well, I would think that it's probably the first time that it did, they would have thought that. And then when it happened again and again and again.
But people were reporting it? Who reports that they got, if a rock hit my windshield and cracked mine, I don't think I'd report it to the police.
I think you're overthinking this really
Granted, no, wait, hold on. Granted,
okay.
is coming from an upward angle.
Downward angle.
Downward angle. So I suppose if someone had seen the projectile and gone, how is it coming down at me? I'm in the middle of a cornfield. Maybe they would be like, okay, hold on. This doesn't make sense.
Well, if you're driving under an underpass and something falls, I could see you reporting it, even if you didn't think there was something nefarious, but like, hey, something just fell off a bridge and hit my windshield.
But not all of them did that. Now, if it was a theory that all of them were coming from an underpass, and then, we discovered later, oh, this guy, he actually has a semi, and he's like 40 feet above the dude, then I could see it.
Congratulations, Deborah. You have Jack thinking. He's going to be thinking about marbles and windshields for a good long time.
I have marbles. I have some experiments to make.
No, you do not. I'm going to take your marbles away.
I
also bought him ball bearings. I may have to confiscate those too.
Oh, there's plenty of circular objects in my house to throw at windows.
Would you like to learn a little bit more about marbles?
Which kind of marbles? Marble marbles? Glass marbles? Steel marbles?
These are mostly glass marbles.
Ah, of course I would.
Deborah gave us a nice background in the story. But I did my little investigation of my own, and I found that tombs of ancient Egyptians, ashes in Pompeii, Native American archaeology, marbles have literally been found everywhere. I thought that was pretty cool that they found the equivalent of marbles like in Pompeii and all over the place. They date back so far that, as Deborah said, marbles has no origin that has been discovered. According to the website Mental Floss, the earliest marbles were stones polished smooth by rivers. Artists made marbles from clay, stone, and glass, and for centuries these were made by hand. In 1884, mass production of clay marbles began in Akron, Ohio. The manufacturing invention lowered the price of marbles from about a penny each to a bag of 30 for a penny. Mass manufacturing of glass marbles also originated in Akron, Ohio, this time around 1915. There's a link in the show notes to an article and a video about how they're made. When it comes to the game, Mental Floss gives us the conundrum that there's no single game called marbles, and any game that played with marbles can be called marbles. There's a lot of games, including the ones described in today's story, so once again, it is a mystery of when marbles originated. I'm going to have a link in the show notes to both Wikipedia and the Mental Floss article. So let me introduce you to our author, About Deborah H. Goldstein. Judge Deborah H. Goldstein is the author of Kensington's 5-book Sarah Blair mystery series, Should Have Played Poker, and an IPPY award-winning Maize in Blue. Her novels and short stories, which have appeared in numerous periodicals and anthologies, have been named Agatha, Anthony, Derringer, Claymore, and Silver Falchion finalists, and she received the Silver Falchion, Bethlehem Writers Roundtable, and Alabama Writers Conclave Awards. She serves on the National Board of Sisters in Crime and previously was a national board member of Mystery Writers of America and president of the Guppy and SEMWA chapters. Find out more about Deborah at her website, deborahgoldstein.com. The link is in the show notes. All right, we are ready for our wrap-up. So that wraps this episode of Mysteries to Die For. Support our show by telling a mystery lover about us, subscribing, or giving us a 5-star review. Check out our website, tgwolff.com/podcast, for links to this season's authors. Mysteries to Die For is created and hosted by TG Wolff and Jack Wolff. Going for All the Marbles was written by Deborah H. Goldstein. Music and production are by Jack Wolff. Episode art is by TG Wolff. Join us next week for a toe tag, which is the first chapter from a fresh release in the mystery, crime, or thriller genre. Then come back in 2 weeks for our next original story, A Head for Murder by Rick Ollerman, where Headbands is the featured game. All right, Jack, without shattering my windshield, take us out.